Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the 10,000 Club. I'm here today with Cindy and Marissa. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
We barely got to say hi to Marissa this morning, so we'll greet you officially, Marissa. Good morning.
Hey.
Hey, Marissa.
My internet pops out. Sorry. I'll pop back on.
That's okay. That's okay. Sometimes that happens. I felt like I had really unstable internet yesterday, so we understand that. So today we are going to be talking about appraisals and specifically navigating appraisals. So does that sound fun?
Yes.
Yes.
Because
we've all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there. Yeah. But I'll tell you, I've been thinking about the fact that, you know, when we're talking about working with our clients, I'm thinking about like being a coach. And really, we are coaches, and we've been coaching them through this game called real estate. And we have all of these little places we have to get to, whether we call them quarters or just navigating different plays during the transaction. But when we get to the appraisal part, right, we've been working with this feeling of the selling process being about winning and losing. And the buyers are losing. I mean, whether they're paying too much or they just keep losing, but sellers keep winning and buyers are losing. But when you finally get under contract, whether it's the buy side or the sell side, because really the appraisal affects both, the buyer is finally winning, right? They have a contract. And so they get through inspections. So there's another win. We're all excited, right? But then we get to the appraisal part. And this is like a new place. It's a place they haven't been. It's a place they've heard about. It's a place that you've been coaching them about, right? Do you guys coach your clients about what's coming up? What's next?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to, especially, you know, if they're first time home buyers. I do it as well, even if they're not. But sometimes people forget the process. If it's not something that they do every day like we do, they don't know what to expect or they don't remember. So definitely coaching them through the process as part of our jobs, right?
Yeah. And I tell buyers, especially if I'm working with a buyer, that there's 3 really big steps: getting an accepted offer, the inspections, and then the last real important one is the appraisal.
Right.
And
yeah, so sometimes navigating the appraisal is no problem, right? I mean, we've had ones where it's no problem. And in different markets, the appraisal process can look different as well. Right now, we've been in this seller's market for quite a long time now. And we're hearing that maybe there might be a shift. We don't know what that will look like or what kind of timetable it could take if it lends itself back to the buy side. But right now, it's a seller's market. And the appraisals are, you know, we have all these tools that we offer in our offers so that when we get to the appraisal, the anxiety level for the sellers are a little low and the buyers are offered 10 or 20 or 30 or 50,000 in an appraisal guarantee, and they're hoping they don't have to use it, but it's really out of our control, correct?
Right.
And I think, thank you for lifting that up, Tracy, because one of the things that you also have to have in these initial conversations with buyers, and this is just a tip that I'm giving every agent right now. If I have the opportunity to talk to them, I'll scream it from the mountaintops. Prep your buyers right now for, unfortunately, the expectations that sellers have right now in regards to when you're putting an offer in. And one of the things that sellers almost expect now is an appraisal gap guarantee.
Yes.
Expectation. And so you have to talk to your folks about this ahead of time so that when you're in the frenzy of trying to write an offer and getting everything together and you're like, oh yeah, by the way, do you have an additional like $10,000 to $50,000 if the appraisal is low? That's not the time to do it. That's not the time to have that conversation.
No, and you want to make sure it's explained real thoroughly too, because it's a new thing. It's a new thing to sellers really and buyers in this market, because I don't think we ever really had to do that before. But yeah, it's always good to explain up front. Then you're not backtracking.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got an accepted offer. Your buyers have applied for their a loan. The appraisal has been ordered, and now the appraiser needs to begin their work. Do they know the sales price, you guys, coaches? Does the appraiser know the sales price?
Oh yeah, they get a copy of the signed
They get the purchase
offer.
agreement. Yep, and they look up the MLS listing as well before they.
So I try to think of it this way. It would almost like be, like you're playing in a game and you just gave your favorite play. You told your friend about it and you shared it with someone else. So, here's the whole contract and now the appraiser gets it. And it's like this independent view, right? But he's got a copy of the homework. Like, I don't get it. But I actually think, do you guys agree that the appraiser is trying to work together with us?
Oh, I think
agree
so.
that they should, yes.
Yeah. Nobody wins. I mean, it's part of the communication process. One other thing, Tracy, what you were talking about, make sure if you have any addendums with price changes and that the whole contract is sent to the appraiser. That's just another big thing, especially if you're changing price, because you learn when that's not happened before.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So I always think of it this way. I always say to my clients, now listen, the appraiser gets a copy of our purchase agreement. So he's going to know, like, right here, this is the number I need. But at the end of the day, I think it's kind of good because he's saying, look, I know the number you're looking for. I know that the buyer and the seller have agreed upon this number. And now it's kind of like my brother-in-law used to say when he did his taxes. I start with this number and then I work my way up to it. Like, this is what I want my refund to be, So it's kind of like that. He knows the number. Now he goes and does his homework and he tries to find whether or not he can agree with our number. So the question is how does he do that? Like, are there any two houses that are exactly the same? What method or adjustment, like, what does that look like, you guys?
Yeah,
I mean, when they do adjustments, they take the subject property, which is the current house, and they look at what has sold in the vicinity, right? And then they go, okay, this house sold down the street. It's very similar to this one, both 3 bedrooms, both 2 bath. But then what they start doing is they start making adjustments up or down to the subject property based on the comparables that they're finding. So if the house that you're comparing the subject house to, the current house, if let's say there's an updated kitchen in that house, right? But the one that the subject property does not have an updated kitchen, you're now adjusting, right? Based on the fact that that house is better because it has an updated kitchen.
Right.
Exactly.
And when you say adjust, you mean sort of like make equal, right?
Price. So like basically they take on or put on price based on the comparable properties. So if you read an appraisal report, it'll say -5,000 if they're taking value off, or it'll add value, and obviously they're not going to have a plus, but it'll have an amount there.
And the appraiser will look at the dates too, because you may have something that sold in that neighborhood 5 years ago, but you have something that sold a mile further recently. And so they're going to look at recent comps. And then I think they'll start working their way out to similar houses in locations.
Agreed.
Yeah, exactly. So if the subject house has an old kitchen, but the one next door has a brand new kitchen, there may be a negative adjustment, right?
Exactly.
To adjust for that.
Yeah.
So, so they continue to adjust until they can make all things equal. And so that's the thing, is I really feel like they're working together with us to try to help us get to that homework number. And if you think about them as being your partner in trying to assist you in getting to the closing table, it does make sense that they get that number, except it's not truly independent. They know what you're looking for. So
they have the answer in advance, like you said, Tracy.
They do. It's like, they get the homework in advance. So
and then you go, please,
and then they work their way
come to that.
What did you say, Marissa?
They work their way backwards. Like they have an answer and then they work their way backwards. That's how I kind of view it. Like they have the price and then they have to affirm that price.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So what happens? Okay. So now the appraiser's got the homework. He's done what we've described and he's compared it to similar homes. Cindy, what happens when there's a shortfall? When they come back, who gets the call first? Who gets the call to say we came up a little short? Where does that call come from?
Well, usually it'll go to the lender first. I like it when an appraiser calls me directly and says, hey, I'm having some issues finding this value. Are there anything that I'm missing here? Or, comps or any upgrades that I'm not aware of, which is nice because then you have a chance. But normally they go to the lender first, and then they're going to come to us and let us know. And I tell people, don't panic. Don't panic. And then obviously you want to communicate with the buyer, and if it's a listing agent or the buyer's agent, and kind of work as a team. Honestly, the communication is so important. And there's no, you don't want to call up the appraiser and start yelling at them or anything like that. It's all about good
Even
communication.
if you want to.
Yeah.
Cindy, do you have experience? Do you have experience, Cindy, with yelling at appraisers?
Okay, I do. I learned the hard way, and I won't do it again. I had an appraisal several years ago, and the appraiser called for a new roof on the garage. Well, I had a seller, very emotional. She had life changes going on, and she'd been a client of mine for years and years and years. So I got a little too involved, and the appraiser called me to let me know that, and I was not happy because we were supposed to close like within a week. So I ended up calling that appraiser to apologize because she was absolutely right. The garage needed a roof.
Yeah.
And so getting all emotional and defensive does not work in our favor at all. So I learned the hard way. Don't do what I did. Plus, I'm serving on a couple committees with this appraiser. So me calling to apologize was a good move on my part, for sure.
For sure.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah. So, so again, the call comes out, you get the call. What say you, Marissa? What happens to you in those situations when you get that call?
If it's low, I will say that I don't think this is a negative thing, but over the years, just because of how the market for the past several years has been escalating in terms of price, I mentally prepare myself for a low appraisal. And I have these conversations. If I have the seller, I have the conversations with the seller ahead of time. So it's like not a surprise. It's not a shock. We have a plan in place. And I do the same thing with my buyers. So for me, I just kind of anticipate it so that we're not caught off guard and then scrambling.
Yeah,
basically.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's just, it's just what this market has produced over the years is just higher prices than historically we've had. And I'm speaking now Kalamazoo specifically, which is where we work mostly, Kalamazoo and Portage and the surrounding areas. And it's not even just the escalation of prices, it's how quickly prices are rising and the amount of time that they're rising in.
Yeah.
So 6 months ago, you could have bought and sold a house and you probably can sell it for more right now. And so that, I think sometimes when you're talking about appraisals and trying to prepare for what may happen, you almost always have to just assume that there may be an issue because of that fact. Is that if, somebody bought this house a year ago, the prices are not today where they were 1 year ago.
Right.
And appraisers, are going back 6 months. Some of them I've heard are going back 90 days. And there's no exact science to it, y'all. There's just not. These are people, they're humans, they have their own opinions and, and so you just can't, you have to explain to your clients, like, you can't, this is not a slam dunk. This is not a done deal. You have to prepare for everything, right?
Yeah, because you're depending on somebody else. And the other thing is the appraisers work for the lenders.
Exactly.
Well, management companies that work for the lenders, and they want to make sure what the buyer is paying for the home, that there's comps to support that.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
So Cindy, so you got a low appraisal. you know, Marissa described, she said there's the low appraisal when you represent the buyer, and then there's the low appraisal when you represent the seller. So let's start with where Marissa started with. You've got a low appraisal with your buyer. What do you do? Where do you go? What are the first steps you're going to start doing?
Yeah, I just worked through one, a pretty low one that came in. We came together on it, so all good news.
Yeah.
But I start with, first of all, I'll like I said before, I don't panic. I'm like, okay. And I have talked with the buyers about that. The appraisal is the next big step. But I review the appraisal. I requested a copy of it. I communicate with the lender right away because I want to know what options my buyers have at that time. Do they have options? What can we work with? How can the lender assist us? Is there something else that the buyer can do? I want to know all the options up front before I start negotiating on behalf of my client. And also before I contact the appraiser, if I find anything in the appraisal that I have questions on. So I review the appraisal. And in this particular one, there was a square footage issue. So it was changed only by 5,000, but hey, it's 5,000 less my client has to worry about.
Mhm.
So
that's good. That's good. So what you're really describing is you're describing part of the appeal process.
yeah.
So let's talk about the appeal process a little bit. Like, okay, so you've got this low appraisal. You've spoke to the buyer, you've spoke to the seller. Perhaps there was an appraisal guarantee at the time the offer was written. And even taking that into consideration, it's still low. Let's just say there's an extra $15,000 to $20,000 on the table. When you're the buyer's agent, you're just, you know, typically I would just go to the seller and say, hey, we got a shortage. Like, what do you want to do? You know, like, can your seller come down? Can the buyer come up? You know, is there any way to meet in the middle to keep the deal together? Because no seller wants to start all over again. Go back to the pool, hope that the buyers that were there are still there, hope that their love and affection for the home has not changed, because it will. They know it's damaged at some point, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So try to find a way to work together, right? So describe the process of appealing. Marissa, what does that look like?
I have joked around about this before, but to me, what it feels like is when I was getting my college degree and I had to write very thorough reports and research papers. That's what it feels like to me. Mm-hmm. Because you're literally going through, like taking a fine-tooth comb, right? You're going through what the appraiser has said are the comps. Because by the time you get to the point where you need to dispute, I don't even want to use the word dispute, but when you get to that point, they've done it and then they send you what they did. So they will send you the comparables that they found. So you go through those with the fine-tooth comb, and then you also try and find your own. So if you were on the listing side, I will say that if you're doing your due diligence, I know we've talked about the listing process in the past several weeks. This is where all of that can now help you. So if you did your due diligence and you did your appropriate research and all that kind of stuff, when you were listing the property, you have these comps. You have them, right? So you just kind of take that information, take that report that you prepare for the seller, go through those comps with a fine-tooth comb, and then the appraisers ask you to give like a summary of each property. This is why I think this house is comparable and like you have to do a report. And if you have a VA loan, it's even that much more detailed because there's like a sheet have to fill out as well. They call it Tidewater. Yeah, that's right. I was like,
yep, it is Tidewater.
Yeah. So you have to also fill out like a sheet specifically if it's like a VA loan, it was low, right? So it's a job. It is a job, and until you do it, you don't know what to expect. So I'm hoping that there are people that are watching this right now or will watch it and just kind of pique your interest a little bit and maybe start practicing. What would I do if I had a low appraisal and I needed to go research some comps and I needed to write a summary? What would I do? What would I write? How would I do that? Just kind of practice, because you don't want it to be you don't want, when it happens to you, you don't want that to be the first time. It's a high stress situation. Your client may be, freaking out and anxious, and the other side may be freaking out and anxious. The lender's like, what's going on? Can you send me? Like, it's a lot. There's a lot going on, right?
There is. Well, in this
And-
particular case, my buyer didn't have an appraisal guarantee.
Mhm.
We had to go back to the drawing board and negotiate on the appraisal came up 5,000, seller came down 5,000, and we worked out the other.
Yeah.
And that's part of the, like you said, Marissa, you go through it like a fine tooth comb. And I think I've had one appraisal be changed by comps, but I have had them be changed by square footage. Maybe they missed a bedroom and called it a den, or, something like that. And it's just like you said, you have a process, and it's so good because you're actually advocating for your clients.
Right.
And, when you build rapport, like with your lenders and all that, it helps in all that process because they know that you're going to do your best.
Right.
Yeah. And Andrew, actually, a question just came in from Andrew asking that exact question was, what happens if there wasn't an appraisal guarantee given? What happens then? It's really the same process, Andrew. You're going back to the lender, you're going to the parties first, and you're going to try to see if you can get those parties to work together. And if you can't, if you were on the listing side, just go back to your homework assignment you did when you met with your sellers. That's your market analysis, which said, this is where I believe the true value of the home is in. So then maybe you're going to go see, has anything else closed in the last 30 to 60 days that help add to this conversation? And then the bank has a formal process that you have to go through, filling out forms, sending them in, and then waiting for an appraiser to take a look at what you sent back to see whether or not he agrees or he's willing to change. He has signed the appraisal. He does not have to make a change to that appraisal.
You're exactly right. They don't have to do that. And just like you said, Tracy, it's, it's really important that you go through the process, and actually it's worth it. If you feel like there is a dispute. Now, if you don't think there's a dispute, you do your best to negotiate and all that, but it's really important because you're advocating for your client.
Yeah, but this is your opportunity to shine, right? This is your opportunity to show your clients that you're in it for them to win. You're 100% in their camp, and you are fighting for every last dime that they don't have to pull out of their pocket. And because these are totally uncharted waters to them. And if you're a new agent, these are going to be uncharted waters for you as well. And that's why at 5-Star here, we have this team of people, whether it's our deal doctors or whether it's this broker support team, that we're here to help you walk through these areas and coach people, even when you're like the assistant coach right now, right? You're working your way up to be the coach, but let us be there for you. Let us help you navigate these waters so that, you can win, but more importantly, that they can win. And, I know that I haven't had great success in fighting appraisals.
I have not.
I've had some wins, small, like Cindy described. And so my win was, it was a condo in Novi. So I sell in the Metro Detroit market, Cindy sells in the Lansing market, and Marissa sells in the Kalamazoo market. And so, all of our markets are different. Price points are all different, but Novi is a very popular area, very competitive.
Yeah.
So I went on this condo and it came up short. And this was probably about 5 years ago, when appraisal gap guarantees and escalation clauses were just not what they were today. Okay. And so it came up short, and it was like, I don't recall, but it wasn't terrible, 10 to 15,000, but it was enough that, it was like a $290,000 condo. It wasn't quite 300.
Okay.
And So I fought it, but the only thing I won on was that he had it marked as a 1-car garage and it was a 2-car garage. So he added some value back in. Then I was able to go back to the buyer and seller and get them both to, one to come up a little bit, one to come down a little bit, and they won. But when you jump in that camp of, hey, let me dig in, let me read through this report, and then how you feel when you find an error, like this is a small win, but we can maybe eke out a little bit of value.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for. So that's my quick win story. It's not amazing, but it's a win.
Hey, it's a win. Yeah. Oh, I'm just glad I can sleep at night now because it's been a week of sleepless nights because
Did you get this one done?
I got it done.
Great.
It's closing next week, but my clients had to be out of their home. I sold their home and they were moving to this house, and you know how that is. You don't want to start over. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Nice. Nice work.
Or they'd be living with me. So, you know.
What about you, Marissa? What's a win for you?
So wins on appraisals. That story list is not very long for me.
Well, how about just a good story? Like you described one about the Tidewater. Explain the Tidewater and how that really just applies to VA.
Absolutely. So I just went through one. We closed on it a week and a half ago. But we had the appraisal come through, and the appraiser called for Tidewater on the property. So it means that she hadn't completed her appraisal report after visiting the property, but she was like in the midst of doing it and was seeing that, in her opinion, that she wasn't finding comparables to support our price. And so she gave us what she had. And then I will actually say what I loved about that process, I mean, it wasn't great in terms of, I didn't agree with the value. I didn't agree with the appraiser at all. But I agree with everything that you all have said about being professional and courteous, right?
Yep.
And not letting them see you sweat.
Yep.
Because that could work against you. But my win for this story was that the listing agent, the buyer's agent and I worked together to complete the report. And that I have not experienced often.
That's good.
That's great. Because you might work with her again or them again.
Yeah. And I will say it was a 5-star agent. Shout out David Lamb. Okay.
Of course.
We worked together. And it was a sucky situation for everyone involved. The buyers, the sellers, like it was not pleasant, you guys.
Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you have parties. You have a buyer that wants to buy and a seller that wants to sell. So everyone needs to have the same goal.
Mm-hmm. Good job, Marissa.
So thank you, David.
Well, good. Well, coaches, real estate professionals, buyers agents, sellers agents, we want your clients to win. We want you to be a professional and just know how to be a good coach. Now know how to get in the lane with your clients and just really work hard. So I hope you found value in learning how to navigate appraisals, whether difficult or otherwise, but understanding the process is an important piece of it all. So thanks, you guys. I hope everyone has a great day, and we will see you back on this same channel next Thursday. Stay cool.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.